Yeah. Analytics off the chain, other channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game. I'm a headliner.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there. Welcome to Week 5 Fantasy Football, where today we're talking about the running backs and who we should start and sit here for Week 5 Fantasy Football. Now, I have played this game for over 20 years. I started this channel about 5 seasons ago. This is what I do, right? I eat, sleep, breathe. I watch everything, do everything football. I can't think of one season in fantasy football that is crazier than what we've seen here so far in 2021 with underperforming studs and injuries and unlikely players who are just popping off like Cordero Patterson. Like, who saw any of that coming, right? It's been absolutely crazy this year, but I'm also here to tell you, stay the course. It's okay. It's still early. You're not out of anything. Because you have some underperforming players doesn't mean that your opponents in your league may not have the same underperforming players at some point throughout the season on their roster. So hang tight. Don't give up. It's way too early for that. But before we dive into Week 5, we've got 2 things. The first thing is, how did we do in Week 4 at the running back position? And if I'm being completely honest, I think we absolutely killed it in Week 4. There was a total of 63 running backs that we talked last week and gave a start or sit designation to. Out of those 63 running backs, 47 of them were correct for an accuracy percentage of 75%. I believe my highest number so far on the season. Some of the biggest misses, James Conner, I can't see him. He is like my kryptonite. I cannot figure it out. I say to start him, he sucks. I say to sit him, he pops off. Maybe going forward, James Conner should be a guy that you just do opposite of whatever I say. Miles Sanders, another miss, huge disappointment. Philadelphia out there being stupid. Chris Carson, really? Getting less work than Alex Collins? That makes a lot of sense, right? We'll talk about that. What about some of the biggest hits? Leonard Fournette, talked about him heading into the game here. Really expected him to be utilized on the ground in Tampa Bay, and he was. Saquon Barkley, why do I have him listed as a hit? Obviously, everybody started Saquon Barkley, but we talked on this show just a couple weeks ago about don't give up on Barkley. Don't give up on Barkley. Don't give up on Barkley. We kind of see why just last week. And with their pass-catching weapons still banged up, huge workload still coming in the way of Saquon Barkley. Also, Chuba Hubbard. Why is he a hit? He didn't do that great. Well, I had him listed as a sit last week. I was really worried about his matchup going up against the Dallas Cowboys, and he looked good at times. They just couldn't find a big enough lead at all in that game to really rely on the run, kind of what we saw coming. That's why we had him listed as a sit, and that's why he was a hit there in Week 4. But this is where it gets really good. Do you like free stuff? Because in September, we gave away a huge bundle of a Justin Jefferson jersey, a Manscaped package, a Trevor Lawrence card for signing up for Prize Picks. But now we're stepping up the game in October. Yes, I now have a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey, a Manscaped Perfect Package 4.0, a mystery pylon. Yes, something like what I have for Barry Sanders right there, a mystery pylon signed by an NFL award winner. We don't know who it is. It's a mystery box. Plus, we're adding on top of it a $50 gift card to Fanatics.com so you can get a little bit of merch for your own team out there. Looking forward to giving away this huge bundle. How do you enter? It's super simple. Download the app Prize Picks or go to their website. The link is down below in the description. Sign up for a new account. Use the referral code Headliners and make your initial $20 deposit. They'll match your deposit all the way up to $100. By doing that, you can make some picks with us, walk away with a little bit extra money, and get yourself entered in this huge giveaway. Now, maybe you're asking, I signed up in September. Jake, am I eligible for the October giveaway? Yes, you are. So make sure you continue to get those signups in because we're looking forward to giving this bundle away. But now is the time we head into Week 5. Super pumped to try to get some momentum going forward here and really build off our success in Week 4 at the running back position. First matchup up, Thursday Night Football, Los Angeles Rams and Seattle Seahawks. Now, when you glance at the box score, this really screams as a Chris Carson type game from Week 4, right? Well, that screaming you hear is actually from the Chris Carson owners because it was a one-possession game by the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson tied his lowest pass attempts in a game this year with only 23. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they combined for a total of 89 yards. But then Pete Carroll comes out and gave Alex Collins 10 carries and only 13 to Chris Carson. Now, there's no word of any injury for Chris Carson. Is this going to be a split backfield going forward? That is slightly concerning. Plus, on paper, it seems like this should be a tough matchup going up against the Los Angeles Rams, but coming into week 4, they allowed 26 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. Then they gave up 38 points to the Arizona running backs. Now, this is one of those games where I can't sit Chris Carson, right? Running backs are finding success against the Rams. Am I worried about Alex Collins slightly? Do I want to start him yet? No, I really don't, because the volume, a little bit hit and miss, up and down, too inconsistent, and really touchdown dependent for him to even be viable. But Chris Carson's still somebody who I expect larger volume in this backfield in a game in which they're going to utilize the run on Thursday Night Football. I'll still start Chris Carson over Alex Collins. Now, for the Los Angeles Rams, it was good to see Darrell Henderson back on the field, right? We love when this guy is playing. And then he came back and saw 20 touches, which was a little bit of a surprise because it was still kind of a question mark or not whether he was going to play. Well, he played, and Sony Michel really wasn't a thing. Only 3 touches in this game for Sony Michel, so they felt comfortable and confident that Darrell Henderson was healthy enough to go out there and shoulder the load. Didn't seem like he had any injury setbacks, so that is good. Now, this is a Thursday night game, right? So expect some rest from him here earlier in the week. Don't freak out just yet. It's nothing to really worry about or out of the ordinary, I guess you could say, for a Thursday night game for these guys who are a little bit banged up, to kind of take the beginning of the week a little bit slower so they're as fresh as they can be for Thursday Night Football. Still should be a good start. Seattle, one of the worst run defenses in all of the league. I'm going to start Darrell Henderson here this week, and Sony Michel, nah, pass. This is still Henderson's backfield. Which takes us over to Sunday Football. Now we got the Jets and the Falcons, and how crazy is the Cordero Patterson production? Just listen to this for a second. Currently, he's on pace for 1,500 total yards and 20 touchdowns. Now, no, more than likely that is not sustainable. He's in his 9th year in the NFL on his 5th different team. He hasn't had more than 500 total yards in a season since 2014. This is absolutely crazy. He's being super efficient. He hasn't had more than 26 snaps in a game. Look where he's at. In some scoring formats, he's running back 2 overall, and he's not even playing any more than 26 snaps a game. I mean, what has changed? What has happened here with Cordero Patterson? Well, they're putting him in a position to succeed, right? He's getting 6 to 7 carries and 6 to 7 targets a game. Over the last 3 weeks, they're really finding a role for him, and a lot of it has to do with him inside the red zone, right? He's a red zone nightmare for opposing teams right now, and now he gets the New York Jets, who give up the 2nd most fantasy points in the NFL to opposing running backs. This is, yeah, we're going to start Cordero Patterson. Now, I need to make sure I warn you a little bit. At some point, I have to expect this to just totally fall off a cliff, right? At some point, the production is really going to dip. We need to make sure that we pay close attention over the next few weeks to make sure his role doesn't change, because if we start to see it dwindle at all, we need to sell high before it comes crashing down. So just something to pay attention to here. We're not selling him yet. We want to ride this wave as long as we can, but he's somebody to definitely pay attention to. Mike Davis, he's not horrible, but the ceiling is just so super low. He's losing the pass work to Cordero Patterson. Wayne Gallman is now seeing 6 carries just last week. That's just going to limit the ceiling of Mike Davis, makes him very unappealing as of right now. But when Cordero Patterson does finally cool off, or opposing defenses start to game plan against him, we may see a little bit more production from Mike Davis. But as of right now, this is Patterson's backfield. He's the guy that I'm starting for the Jets. This is clearly the backfield of Michael Carter. He is the best running back in this backfield. In week 4, his snap percentage was the highest of the season so far, with 51% of the offensive snaps he was on the field. There's really just a lack of scoring opportunities for the Jets, right? A lot of turnovers, a lot of interceptions, a lot of fumbles there in that offense. It's just not very appealing to have a running back there to start. This is not a bad matchup, though. I love the talent of Michael Carter, but I still think he's a couple weeks away before he starts to enter flex territory. Second half of the season, the way that we're seeing him progress, he could be somebody, down the stretch. But as of right now, still too early, still going to be a sit. Takes us over to Green Bay and Cincinnati. And do you remember we were just talking about Seattle and how you look at the box score and it just screamed Chris Carson? You can kind of do the same thing here for the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Jones. And then we see that A.J. Dillon was used a lot. In fact, A.J. Dillon had the same amount of carries, 15, in week 4 that he had in the first 3 weeks of the season combined. that's hard to swallow, right? Because in a game like that, we really want to see an abundance of touches going the way of Aaron Jones, but he's been playing so great as of late. A costly fumble there kind of lowered his point total down from where we really wanted it to be. So it's a disappointing week for Aaron Jones. Is he losing his job? Hell no, he ain't losing his job. This is just one of those things where we may start seeing A.J. Dillon in games later against lesser opponents, I guess you could say. Now, is that what Cincinnati is? Cincinnati is in first place, and they are very much improved, and they're able to score points, and that's the biggest thing. Keeping the games close. Close games mean more Aaron Jones. Now, we're of course sticking with Aaron Jones here. He's going to remain in the start column. The Bengals allow right around 20 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs, and there's more than enough to go around for Aaron Jones to still have a solid day, so he's definitely going to be a starter. For the Bengals, Joe Mixon, right, dealing with a low-grade ankle sprain. Now, this is something we need to follow super closely all throughout the week. We'll talk to the doctor about it here on Friday to see how he's progressed throughout the week, but I'm a little bit worried, I guess, maybe a little bit. Not that the injury is that bad, but the Bengals don't suck anymore. You know, I mean, the Bengals are contending in that division. The Bengals are 3-1. They're not bottom dwellers anymore. They're playing for something. They have to be a little bit smart at times. Now, the Packers, a middle of the pack run defense. Packers, middle of the pack. But, you know, it's not something where this is a great matchup for them, but it's not something that's a difficult matchup either. I would expect Joe Mixon to play. I'm just worried that he's going to be limited to the point where maybe we see a little bit more Samaje Perine or Chris Evans so they don't further this injury and really lose Mixon for any amount of time. Pay close attention to the practice reports. We'll update you here as we head into the weekend. As of right now, I have Joe Mixon listed as injured, but he's under the start column. So it's just something to pay attention to because if he plays, if he's 100% healthy, he's definitely going to be a start for you here this week. That takes us to the Detroit Lions, Minnesota Vikings, and over the past few weeks, I've had a few of these one-on-one talks here with some NFL head coaches. I spoke to Ron Rivera's soul last week about Antonio Gibson. Gibson scored a touchdown. I've done it in the past to Bill Belichick about Damian Harris. Well, now it's time for me to talk to Dan Campbell of the Detroit Lions. Dan, I mean, seriously? With DeAndre Swift, you're going to pull this type of crap? You out there acting like you're the Green Bay Packers. Dan, you the damn Detroit Lions. Quit being so cute. I mean, you have DeAndre Swift, who is one of the best running backs in football the first 3 weeks of the season. And then you come out, Dan, and say how you want to get DeAndre Swift even the ball even more. You want him more involved. And then Dan comes out and gives Jamal Williams the most carries he's had so far this season with 14. Yet Dan also gave DeAndre Swift the fewest carries and receptions in a game he's had this year. Dan, that's stupid. Dan, that is stupid. Dan, you are the Lions. You are the Detroit motherfucking Lions. You're not able to be cute like this. You don't have very many great players. The ones that you have, you need to give the football. Fix it this week, Dan. You have a great opportunity this week, Dan, going up against the Minnesota Vikings, who allow over 20 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. Throw him the ball. Hand him the ball. DeAndre Swift needs more volume this week, and I expect him to get it, Dan, because I'm going to start DeAndre Swift. As for Jamal Williams and this up and down as far as his carries go, because you can't figure out what you want to do with him, Dan, he's going to remain in the sit column until you can really figure out how you want to handle this backfield going forward. Starting to get a little flustered on that one. I was getting in my feelings there for a second. Dan pissed me off this past week. Let's see. As for the Minnesota Vikings, I hate that Dalvin Cook is still limited, especially in a matchup going up against these Detroit Lions who allow a buttload of points to opposing running backs. As of right now, over 35 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. But last week, we saw Dalvin Cook struggle to play through his ankle injury. Only played 33 offensive snaps, which was 49% of their total offensive plays. Can you afford to sit him? I mean, probably not. Maybe if you're super stacked and maybe you got Cordero Patterson on your bench, maybe something like that you can plug and play. But a lot of teams don't have any better options than Dalvin Cook. Plus, if he's playing, you know he has that super high ceiling. This is another one of those Joe Mixon-ish type of situations for Dalvin Cook. I have him listed in the start column, but I also have him designated as injured because we really need to pay close attention. If he heads into the weekend once again and is extremely limited or is a game time decision, I will contemplate sitting Dalvin Cook and starting Alexander Mattison for this reason. They're playing the Detroit Lions. I think Alexander Mattison would be just as successful, even though the talent level is not that of Dalvin Cook. They could still find success on the ground here in this game with Alexander Mattison, and they don't have to risk further injury to Dalvin Cook. That's something I'm going to pay super close attention to, and another guy we'll talk to the doc about on Friday, so pay close attention. Make sure you have a plan B, just in case if you're a Dalvin Cook owner. On to the Broncos and Steelers now, and where did all the Najee Harris volume go last week? I mean, in week 3, guy had 19 targets. In week 4, 7? Like, where did it all go? Just kidding. I don't expect 19 targets a game. That was absolutely crazy in week 3, and I'm perfectly fine with 7 per week because he still had a total of 21 touches just this last week. However, he played in the fewest snaps in a game that he has all season long with only 48. They couldn't really rely on him that much here this week. Plus, they don't want to overuse this kid and have him wear down the stretch. Now, he's in no threat of losing any work in this backfield. It is clearly his. They have injured weapons on the outside, and I still expect 20 plus touches a week from Najee Harris. Now, Denver, pretty solid against the run. They allow only 12 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. So we may see a slightly lower ceiling because Denver is number 1 in the NFL when it comes to holding opposing running backs to the lowest scores there for fantasy football. But there's really no way you can sit Najee Harris, especially with the way that Big Ben is playing. They're going to have to rely more on the running game because Ben just can't get it done. I'll start Najee Harris here once again, obviously. For Denver, this is a true 50-50 split between Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Personally, I still like Javonte Williams more. And this past week, he just played his highest percent of snaps in a game that he's seen all season with 51% to Melvin Gordon's 49%. So yes, a true 50-50 split. But as this season progresses, I have said this for months and months and months, and people, they don't see it. But as the season progresses, I really expect Javonte Williams to get more and more of this offense. Exactly what week does that happen? I wish I knew exactly what week, but it's going to slowly happen, especially since Melvin Gordon not 100% healthy. The biggest issue here is on a weekly basis, there's not a lot of rushing touchdowns to go around in Denver. The ceilings, they're not very high. They're more big play dependent. They're dependent on who gets the goal line carries. Now, going up against Pittsburgh, who allows less than 20 fantasy points per game, it's really hard to trust either one of these guys. Both of them, I can see a similar game to last week where they had, 7, 8 fantasy points or so, each. I can kind of see that type of game again until they can find themselves more involved inside the 5-yard line, until they get more opportunities inside the 5, inside the 10. It's going to be a little bit risky, especially in a difficult matchup. For this week, I'm going to sit both Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams and just hope it doesn't backfire on us here in week 5. Which takes us over to the Miami Dolphins and Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2 Florida teams going at it here this weekend. And you know that same talk that I just had with Dan Campbell? I want to do it with Brian Flores, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins, but honestly, that dude scares me. And nope, I'm going to pick on Brian Flores. I have a feeling he would find me while I was sleeping. Or something. He can be a scary dude, but the guy just gave up on Myles Gaskin, and for no apparent reason. Myles Gaskin played only 12 snaps this past week. 12. This guy is top 10 in the NFL among all running backs in yards per carry, averaging over 5 yards per carry. But what did he do? He decided to play Malcolm Brown and Salvon Ahmed, who are averaging combined just over 2 yards per carry. I don't understand that. And now you get a difficult matchup going up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are a lot easier to throw on than they are to run on. A difficult matchup. And now we really don't know how to go forward with this backfield because we can't figure out your playing time. Now, they just held Damian Harris to -4 yards rushing. Until we see more clarity in this backfield, all of these guys, Gaskin, Brown, Ahmed, they're all sits here for me in week 5. Now, for Tampa Bay, I continue to believe in Leonard Fournette as being the top option in this backfield. He's coming off a game in which he had 23 touches for 138 total yards and played in 82% of the snaps. Now, Rojo's kind of just getting the scraps, right? He's going to find some success at times. Rojo doesn't suck. He's just not committed to in this offense. And because of that lack of commitment, it makes us not be able to trust him weekly. And that's why he's a sit weekly, very touchdown dependent. Now, Miami, they allow over 25 fantasy points per game, but I'm only going to roll with Fournette here once again. With the injured Gio Bernard, that pass catching work going the way of Leonard Fournette really raises his floor on a weekly basis. Plus, he's producing. And Bruce Arians has a knack for really relying on guys who have the hot hand. That's Leonard Fournette right now, and that's who I'm starting there for Tampa Bay. On to the Saints and football team now. And does New Orleans not remember that Alvin Kamara is pretty dang good at catching passes? Like really good? Because he's had at least 20 carries in 3 of the first 4 games this season. Plus, when you look at his career averages, for 2021, he's averaging 7 more carries a game and 3 less receptions a game when you look at his entire career. Now he's going up against the Washington football team, whose defense underperforming to say the least. The volume is still there, but the ceiling is lower because the pass catching work isn't there. And that is really confusing. Now we're starting to see more Taysom Hill. And if Taysom Hill gets more involved on the ground, you're going to see less scoring opportunities for Alvin Kamara. Kind of what we saw this past week. The volume is still there, but the ceiling is lower and lower as the season progresses. He's still a start, but I'm getting a little bit worried about that potential ceiling for Kamara here in 2021. As for the Washington football team and Antonio Gibson, and let's just include J.D. McKissic here while we're at it. I expect this split to continue for at least a few weeks. And why is that? Gibson is not 100% healthy. At times he looks explosive, but he just can't go the entire game. We know he was dealing with a shin injury there later in the week. And it's obvious that we're starting to see a little bit more J.D. McKissic when Antonio Gibson is banged up. But the one benefit to that is they're both finding a way to coexist, right? They're still scoring double-digit points. They're just not getting huge ceiling games because they're eating into each other's ceiling. This is not a run-first team, right? They're not reliant on running the ball 20, 30 times a game. Both of these guys, very touchdown dependent. Both of these guys, very big play dependent. In a game this week going up against New Orleans where Washington really wants to start getting some momentum, I have to believe that they're going to continue to use both of these guys in the backfield. And with the touchdown upside of Antonio Gibson and the big playability of J.D. McKissic, I'm going to start both of these guys. However, when the rankings come out later in the week, neither of these guys are going to be up there in the top 15 more than likely. They're probably going to be dropped down. Antonio Gibson probably in that 18 to 22 range or so, because I'm just a little bit worried about that ceiling. I want to temper expectations here slightly this week. Eagles and Panthers are up next, and at this point, I think I'm pretty much convinced that Jalen Hurts goes onto the Instagram of Miles Sanders and just dislikes everything. He just dislikes whatever Miles Sanders does, because I just don't get it. Jalen Hurts will check the ball down to Kenneth Gainwell, but he won't really do it to Miles Sanders. This is back-to-back games now with at least 10 touches or less for Miles Sanders. How can you not get this guy more than 10 touches a game? He has 9 carries combined over the last 2 weeks. Yep, now we're starting to see Kenneth Gainwell getting more pass work. However, he's yet to receive more than 40% of the offensive snaps. So Sanders is on the field. He's just not getting the ball. And what sense does that make? When you have a big playmaker like Miles Sanders and you have him on the field, yet you don't get him the ball. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And now they have a matchup going up against the Carolina Panthers, a very difficult defense here to try to run on. However, we just saw the Dallas Cowboys take advantage of this run defense. It's a very inconsistent backfield in Philadelphia. I would love for them to commit to one of these guys, even if it is Kenneth Gainwell, right? Even if we just say, you know what, Miles Sanders, it's not going to happen this year because they're not committed to him. Okay, at least we know going forward. But this back and forth and wishy-washy, we don't know who's getting touches. It's too inconsistent in a difficult matchup. I'm sitting both of these guys here this week for the Panthers. And Chuba, I mean, I had him as a sit last week. A lot of people kind of thought that was crazy because they spent a number 1 waiver wire claim to get him. And I like the kid. I really do. I like the talent. I like their ability to put him in a place to succeed. But this is just a much better matchup for him this week than it was last week. The Eagles, they allow right around 30 fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. I'm expecting the Chuba bounce back this week. Not worried about Royce Freeman. Chuba's going to be a start here in week 5. Titans and Jags now, and if there's ever any doubt again in the future that Derrick Henry just isn't the safest running back in fantasy football, you're absolutely crazy. Because this guy just produces and produces and produces. Once again, the number 1 overall running back in fantasy football this season. 3 straight weeks with over 144 total yards. Now he's being involved in the passing game, had at least 20 touches every single game, and now he gets Jacksonville. Hell yeah, Derrick Henry owners. It's going to be a good week for you. Obvious start. For James Robinson, So glad to see him getting back to his 2020 form, right? He's finally being committed to. How committed are they? He played in 95% of the snaps in week 4, 19 plus touches now in back-to-back games. I mean, Urban Meyer is just out there grinding tape, if you know what I mean, because he's going back to what they really need to do and giving the ball to James Robinson. I mean, DJ Chark is hurt now. That's one less weapon in the passing game. Maybe a few more short crossing routes, more checkdowns, more designed screenplays going the way of James Robinson. He's got a little bit of job security now because Carlos Hyde just doesn't seem to be a thing anymore, which is great to see. Plus, Tennessee allows 20 plus fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. Love what we're seeing. Love the trends and projections we're seeing for James Robinson. He's staying in the start column here for week 5. Which takes us to the Patriots and the Texans, and this is a much better matchup for one Damien Harris. Now, his touches have decreased in every game the first 4 games of the season. That's slightly concerning. Plus, the first 4 games of the season, he's seen a decrease every single week in his yards per attempt. But now he gets the Houston Texans. And come on, it's the Houston Texans, and they get blown out almost every week. In fact, I'm heading over to Prize Picks, and I'm going to smash the over on Damien Harris right now, which is set at 59.5 rushing yards. I can see them eclipsing that. We saw a lot more confidence from Mac Jones this past week. Maybe this offense takes a step forward, in total, and they really get a late game lead and can rely a little bit more on Damien Harris. So he's going to be the guy that I start here this week. As for the Houston Texans, no. Houston has a point differential on the season of negative 49 points. Their opponents have outscored them through 4 games by 49 points. They're just not getting the opportunity to run because they're always trailing, right? Plus, there's so many options in this backfield that they all eat into each other's production. For David Johnson, for Mark Ingram, for Phillip Lindsay, for Rex Burkhead, for everybody else in that zip code that wants to play running back for the Texans, they're all sits here for me once again in week 5. On to Chicago and Las Vegas now, and at first this offense was struggling because Matt Nagy was an idiot. And then week 4 started, and they looked a little bit better, right? I mean, they were giving the ball to Demont, and he was dominating, had 23 touches, a couple touchdowns there, and then bam, just like that, down with a knee injury, could miss 4 to 5 weeks is what's being reported. It didn't look good. I'm glad we didn't lose him for the season, but still 4 or 5 weeks without David Montgomery, not ideal. I guess you could say I own a lot of David Montgomery, and I hate seeing that here with him. But here's what the problem is. What happened was, after he went down, Damian Williams didn't look half bad, right? Damian Williams came in and looked pretty good. And then what happened with him? He got hurt. Now, it sounds like it's just a thigh bruise and that he should be okay. But this is something to watch because as of right now, he could be the guy we're looking at in this matchup going up against the Las Vegas Raiders. If anything is out of the ordinary for Damian Williams where he cannot go, learn the name Khalil Herbert. Now, maybe you know who he is, maybe you don't. The guy is electric, and he can make things happen. A rookie here this year for the Chicago Bears, really looking for an opportunity. Right now, the Vegas Raiders, they allow right around 20 fantasy points per game. I prefer to not risk this with anybody, right? I really don't want to start Damian Williams because I know he's not 100% healthy. I really don't want to trust Khalil Herbert in his first ever start if that's what exactly happens, if Williams can't go. Too many question marks. I'm going to avoid this backfield altogether in Chicago for the Vegas Raiders. It was great to see Josh Jacobs back, and he got 19 touches. That's great for Josh Jacobs. He's clearly the guy in that backfield. But when he's healthy, they're not committed to Kenyon Drake. They're not committed to Peyton Barber. They're committed to Josh Jacobs. And the Bears, they allow right around 20 fantasy points per game. I see, just based off of week 4, that they feel more comfortable with Josh Jacobs' health and that they were able to keep him out there on the field and get those touches. If they were really concerned, they would have limited them even more, being that he didn't have any setbacks, being that they want to come back and get back in the win column. They're going to ride Josh Jacobs here once again. He's going to be the guy that I start in the backfield this week for the Raiders. Now we go on to the Cleveland Browns and Los Angeles Chargers, and this one right here, this is my Manscaped matchup of the week for the running back position. Now, just a reminder, as soon as this video is over, head over to manscaped.com. Get yourself something nice for your travel bag, fellas. It's not just ball trimmers, even though the ball trimmers are pretty nice. Go over there, check it out. Use the promo code Headliners. Get 20% off and free shipping as soon as this video is over. Links down below in the description. But as for this game, there's a couple of no-brainers. Actually, there's 3 no-brainers in this game. You got Nick Chubb, you got Kareem Hunt, you got Austin Eckler. However, over the past week or so, I'm getting pretty puzzled by some of the Chubb comments. I'm seeing people saying, is it time to panic on Nick Chubb? No. Should I trade Nick Chubb? No. This is what's confusing to me is in fantasy football, we strive to find as many top 10, top 12 guys that we can get into our rosters. As of right now, Nick Chubb is currently running back 9 overall and number 2 in the NFL in rushing yards. He trails Kareem Hunt by only 5 points and is only 11 points away from being the number 2 overall running back in fantasy football. He's absolutely fine. I think people are just spoiled by huge games. We can't go out every single week and expect these guys to score 20, 25, 30 points. We're putting our expectations way too high. For a guy to go out and get 100 yards rushing is somewhat of a win because look around the league. There's a lot of guys that are really struggling to do anything right now. To have a guy inside the top 10, that's not the time to panic sell when you're looking to add studs. You're not going to get anything in return any better. Now for Kareem Hunt, he's absolutely killing it. He's doing great. He's getting the touchdowns right now. As much as that sucks for Nick Chubb owners, at least we still see the volume heading the way of Nick Chubb. He's still a guy getting over 20 touches a week. It's not like he's dwindling away and Kareem Hunt is taking it all. They're coexisting, which we know is what happens in Cleveland because they run so much. Both of these guys, you just don't sit them. For Eckler, this dude is so dynamic, not only just on the ground, but through the air as well. He's really producing all over the field. Looks like we escaped a little bit of an injury concern there on Monday Night Football where he came off the field limping, but came back in, scored a couple touchdowns, and looked just fine. Larry Roundtree, he's really just there so Austin Eckler can get a breather. He's not somebody who's killing it with efficiency, needs huge volume. He's not going to get that much to really be relevant, so he's going to be a sit. A tough matchup for them, though, going up against the Cleveland Browns. But Austin Eckler, he's just too versatile to ever sit, and his ability to catch passes out of the backfield makes that floor safe. He's an obvious start for me here once again. On the Giants and Cowboys, now in another no-brainer here, right? You're starting Saquon Barkley, you're starting Ezekiel Elliott, but how great do they both look here as of late, right? Saquon Barkley back to what seems to be 100% health, getting huge volume, finding the end zone. Zeke running angry, running like he did a couple years ago. He looks really, really good. But this is a tougher matchup for Saquon Barkley than it is for Ezekiel Elliott. However, that's not enough to say we're not going to start Saquon Barkley. Don't forget, Jason Garrett is on that Giants sideline. He's going to want to go in there and give a lot of touches to Saquon Barkley, similar to what he did with Ezekiel Elliott when he was in Dallas. So look for Barkley to potentially have a huge volume game. So being that we already know about Zeke and we know about Saquon Barkley, that really comes down to what do we do with Tony Pollard? Because he's the only other guy here that we ever contemplate starting, but he's so touchdown dependent, so big play dependent. If you look at all the big games of Tony Pollard, it's because he had a big touchdown run or a big touchdown catch. If he doesn't get that big play, he's not cracking 10 fantasy points. And because Zeke is playing so well, I can't trust Tony Pollard and he's going to be a sit. As for Zeke though, another one of these guys, I'm going to head over to Prize Picks and smash the over on Ezekiel Elliott, currently set at 72.5 rushing yards there on the day going up against the Giants. That's something that I'll gamble on because right now Ezekiel Elliott looks great and they're utilizing him so much that it's good to see and he can easily eclipse that 72.5 rushing yards. Now, the NFC West matchup, San Francisco 49ers, Arizona Cardinals, and I can't seem to figure out James Conner. I have missed on him all 4 weeks this season. Now, I like this guy coming into the preseason. I told everybody, hey, in the 9th round where you're drafting this guy, he is a huge value. And now him and Chase Edmonds both find themselves inside the top 24 running backs, a little bit more touchdown dependent, I guess you could say, for James Conner than is Chase Edmonds, who's still getting that passing work. But as of late, James Conner finding the end zone, even in some difficult matchups. I mean, maybe from now on going forward, whatever I say to do with James Conner, just do the opposite. Because this guy is literally my kryptonite as of right now. Now, Chase Edmonds, he's going to remain a start just due to that passing work. We're seeing some boosted efficiency on the ground, which is great. So he's a solid flex start here this week. As for James Conner, though, he's had 12 plus touches in 3 out of the 4 games he's played this season, but he's only averaging 3.2 yards per carry, which means he needs huge volume or he needs touchdowns. This Arizona offense, though, is clicking. They're arguably the best team overall in football, and now they're playing at home against the 49ers, who allow over 20 fantasy points per game. I'm going to start James Conner here once again and cross my fingers that I can hopefully get one right. As for San Francisco, what a total cluster. if you know what I'm talking about. I mean, now they have Trey Lance starting with the Jimmy G injury. You know Trey Lance at times going to call his own number, steal maybe some of those goal line carries, maybe some QB sneaks up the middle. And this is already a backfield that's not producing a whole lot. Kyle Juszczyk may be their most prolific running back right now, and he's not doing much of anything. They're going to be trailing more than likely, I would expect, in this game, not being able to rely on the run. Plus, we know Trey Lance wants to throw it down the field as well. This backfield, already a bunch of low ceiling plays, sitting everybody in San Francisco. Now to what should be one of the best games here of Week 5, the Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, and this one, it could be really fun, right? I've really enjoyed seeing the CEH bump over the last couple weeks. Remember, everybody gave up on CEH, and all of a sudden the last 2 games, he's really produced back-to-back games with at least 16-plus touches and 100 yards rushing in each of those games. But this one's going to be a lot tougher than those. Right now, the Buffalo Bills, number 3 in the NFL against opposing running backs, allowing only 10 fantasy points per game. Plus, Darrell Williams is somebody who's starting to see a few more carries from time to time, which is okay. That doesn't worry me. We kind of saw that in the preseason, and we talked about that in a few videos. We still see the electricity, though, of CEH, and they're going to try to get him going. CEH is going to remain a start, but his ceiling is going to be somewhat limited, which means I'm going to limit expectations in my rankings and have him drop down a few spots. Not going to be more than likely a top 15 guy. For Buffalo, this is still a 50-50 split, right, between Devin Singletary and Zach Moss. Really comes down to who scores the touchdown on a weekly basis, because Kansas City allows the 5th most points to opposing running backs, right around 23 fantasy points per game. In my opinion, still, I'm rolling with Zach Moss. I think Devin Singletary is the better running back. Full disclosure, that's my own opinion. But the upside lately, the pass catching work and the work around the goal line, they've been giving to Zach Moss. He's not as efficient. He's not somebody who's sexy. He's really not a running back too. He's a flex play, hoping for that touchdown because he's scored touchdowns now in 3 straight games. Can we make it 4 this week? That's what I'm banking on. That's why I'm starting Zach Moss only in Buffalo. On to Monday Night Football then, and it's the Indianapolis Colts, Baltimore Ravens, and it was good to see Jonathan Taylor kind of return to form last week, right? The most touches he's had in a game since week 1 with 19, and he's averaging 6.4 yards per carry over his last 2 games. He's playing really well. Plus, Nyheim Hines is what you would call struggling, I guess, at this point. The Baltimore Ravens allow over 20 fantasy points per game. Jonathan Taylor is going to be the guy that I start here on Monday Night Football, and I'm going to continue to wait on Nyheim Hines till we find a little bit more consistency. As for Baltimore, I hate to be right on some things, and like I've mentioned for weeks, Ty'Son Williams is, in my opinion, the best running back in the backfield of Baltimore. However, we knew as soon as they signed all these veterans that at some point they were going to take over because they wanted that stability. They wanted that veteran leadership on the field. Does Latavius Murray look like the best running back in football? No, he doesn't. But right now, he is the number 1 lead back in the backfield for the Baltimore Ravens. Le'Veon Bell will start to get a few touches. Devontae Freeman, a few touches a week. Ty'Son Williams last week was a healthy scratch. And that needs to be what everybody pays attention to. You don't healthy scratch somebody if you really plan on carving out a role for him just because you want to see what you have in Le'Veon Bell. I mean, come on. That's the nice way. That's the PC way of saying it. But Ty'Son Williams is on his way out, probably back to a practice squad somewhere because they're going to roll with their veterans here remainder of the season. Like I said, I don't love it. Latavius Murray is a guy that's going to have that touchdown upside, and he's going to get the scoring opportunities in this offense. I'll start Latavius Murray here this week, but he's the only guy as of right now I'm interested in this backfield. All right, so those are my starts and sits for Week 5 fantasy football. Just a reminder, you got to get in on the October giveaway through PrizePicks. Head over to prizepicks.com, download the app, create that new account, use the referral code Headliners, and make that initial deposit. They'll match your deposit up to $100, plus you'll be entered in to the giveaway of the CMC jersey, the Manscaped box, the mystery pylon, and a $50 gift card to fanatics.com. So don't miss out on that. You want to get in on it as soon as you possibly can. But we're looking forward to another solid Week 5, a great Week 4 overall at the running back position. Let's do it again here this week. We wish everybody the best of luck. Hopefully you have a great day, a great rest of your week, and be sure to check out all the other start sit videos and our rankings that come out on Thursday. Looking forward to that as well. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you later.